The morning my son told me to wait in the car while he handled the paperwork, I believed him. I believed him the way I'd believed every word he'd said for 38 years, because he was my son. And mothers believe their sons. What I didn't know was that by the time he walked back out of that building, my name would already be on forms I'd never read, signing away control of everything I had left. But what they didn't know was that I hadn't taken the small pink pill my daughter-in-law had handed me with breakfast that morning. And for the first time in 7 months, I could think clearly enough to understand exactly what was happening to me. I'm grateful you're here. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And before we go any further, have you ever trusted someone so completely that you stopped questioning them altogether? I had. And it almost cost me everything. My name is Margaret. I'm 63 years old. I live in Naperville, Illinois, in the same house where I raised my son, Daniel, and his younger sister, Carol. My husband, Robert, passed in 2020 from a heart attack. We were married for 34 years. After he died, I did what a lot of women my age do. I kept going. I taught 4th grade for 27 more years. I kept the garden. I called my grandchildren every Sunday. I thought I was doing fine. That was before the pills. It started in August of 2023. Daniel had been coming around more, which I appreciated at first. He and his wife, Vanessa, would stop by on weekends with the grandchildren. It felt like family was pulling together after Robert's death. Vanessa started helping me with my medications after I mentioned I'd been having some memory trouble, forgetting appointments, losing my keys, the usual things that happen when you're grieving and getting older. Harmon, who practiced in Oak Brook, she said I'd had an appointment with him in July, though I had no memory of it. I trusted her. She was organized, efficient. She printed out a little schedule and laid my pills out every morning in a white plastic organizer. 1 pink pill for your memory, Margaret. Just like doctor. Harmon prescribed. I never questioned it. And by October, I couldn't have questioned anything even if I'd wanted to. The fog was unlike anything I'd experienced in 63 years of living. It wasn't just forgetting. It was like someone had wrapped thick cotton around my entire mind. Conversations slipped away before they ended. I'd start a sentence and lose the end of it. I'd walk to the kitchen and stand there for 5 full minutes trying to remember why I'd come. Carol called twice in November, and I didn't recognize her voice until she said her name. I cried after I hung up. I told myself this was what Alzheimer's felt like from the inside, and I started to say goodbye to myself in pieces. I stopped fighting it. That was the worst part. I stopped fighting and started accepting, because that's what you do when you've been told your mind is going. You surrender. Daniel handled everything. My bank accounts, he said he needed to help manage them so bills wouldn't be missed. My doctor appointments Vanessa drove me because I'd had a small fender bender in the parking lot of the grocery store. My legal documents there were forms to update, Daniel said, now that Robert was gone. Things that needed to be in order. He handled it all so smoothly that I didn't notice what was being built around me until the walls were already up. This quick note: the story you're about to hear blends real events with some dramatized moments for impact. But every lesson in it is true. And the lessons about who you can trust and what to do when you can't matter more than any story. On the morning of February 7th, 2024, I woke at 6 and did something I hadn't done in 7 months. I did not take the pink pill. I don't know what made me hesitate. Looking back, I think it was the dream. I dreamed about Robert and Hez. He was standing in our kitchen, the way he used to stand before work, coffee in one hand, reading the newspaper. He looked at me over the top of the page and said, "Peggy, where are your glasses?" I used the nickname he'd always called me. I never wear glasses in dreams, but I reached up to my face and felt them there, and when I put them on, the whole kitchen sharpened into focus. Every detail clear and bright, I woke up and lay still for a long moment. The house was quiet. Vanessa and Daniel were staying over that week, which had become a habit. They said they were worried about leaving me alone overnight. I looked at the pill organizer on my nightstand, the little pink pill in the Wednesday slot. I picked it up, rolled it between my fingers, and I put it in the pocket of my robe. At breakfast, Vanessa set down a plate of eggs and poured my coffee. She asked if I'd taken my medication. I said yes. She watched me for a beat, then turned back to the stove. By 9 o'clock, I knew something was wrong with what had been happening to me. Not wrong with me. The fog wasn't lifting slowly, the way you'd expect a disease to ease. It was lifting fast within a few hours. I was thinking in straight lines again. I was remembering things from the last several months. Fragments, pieces, things that hadn't made sense through the haze but now snapped together like tiles in a mosaic. The forms Daniel had asked me to sign in November. The phone calls I'd heard through the bedroom wall, Vanessa's voice low and careful. The name of the financial advisor Daniel had introduced me to in December, a man named Gareth, who had driven all the way from Schaumburg to sit in my living room and asked me questions I couldn't follow. I sat in my armchair while Daniel and Vanessa loaded things into their car. They said we were going to Oak Brook today, an appointment with Dr. Harmon, and then a stop at an assisted living community. Just to look. No pressure, Vanessa had said with her warm smile, the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes, just to see if it might be a good fit. I nodded and said nothing. But my heart was hammering. In the car, I sat in the back seat and watched the highway signs pass. I used to drive this stretch of I-88 to school every morning for 27 years. I knew every exit. And the name of this facility, Meadowview Senior Living in Oak Brook, I'd never heard of it before last week. But I'd also noticed, watching through my clearer eyes, that Daniel had packed 3 bags into the trunk that morning. Mine was not among them. I thought of Robert, of the dream, of the glasses bringing everything into focus. I thought of the time he'd come home from work 2 years before he died and sat me down and said, "Peggy, I need you to promise me something. I need you to promise you'll fight. Not for me, but for yourself." He'd said it out of nowhere. I hadn't understood it then. I understand it now. We pulled into the parking lot of Meadowview Senior Living. Daniel put the car in park and turned to look at me. "Okay, Mom. You wait here while Vanessa and I go inside and let them know we've arrived. We'll come get you in just a few minutes." Vanessa squeezed my hand. "We just want you to be comfortable, Margaret. That's all we've ever wanted." They got out. I watched through the windshield as they walked toward the entrance. Vanessa had her purse. Daniel had a folder, the kind with a rubber band around it, thick with papers. They did not look back. I sat very still. 1 minute became 5. 5 became 10. A woman walked past the car with a small dog on a leash. Clouds moved over the February sun. I reached into my purse and found my phone. My real phone, not the simplified one Daniel had given me in October with the big buttons, but my old iPhone, which I'd found in the back of my nightstand drawer 2 days ago and quietly charged. I'd hidden it under my mattress. I called my daughter, Carol. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom, you never call from this number." "Carol," I said, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. I don't have much time." There was a silence. Then, "Mom, what's wrong? Your voice sounds different." "Different how?" "Like you. Like my actual mother." I told her as quickly and clearly as I could. The facility, the 3 bags, the pink pills I hadn't taken, the way my mind had cleared, the forms from November. A long pause. "Mom," she said quietly, "stay in that car. I'm already thinking about going inside." "Don't. Stay right there. I'm leaving Evanston now. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Don't sign anything. Don't let them put you in a room by yourself. Do you hear me?" "I hear you." "Mom, are you absolutely sure you haven't had your medication today?" I told her I was sure. Then God help Daniel, because I'm coming. I waited. It was the longest 41 minutes of my life. Daniel came back out at the 20-minute mark, cheerful, his hands in his coat pockets. He leaned down to the car window. "They're ready for us, Mom." Vanessa's inside getting the tour started. I said I wasn't feeling well. I said I needed a few more minutes in the car. He studied my face. "You look flushed. Did you take your pill this morning?" I told him I had. He went back inside. At minute 41, Carol's Subaru pulled into the far end of the parking lot. She crossed the asphalt toward me in long, furious strides, her breath making clouds in the cold air. She opened the back door and slid in beside me and grabbed both my hands. "Oh, Mom." Her eyes were filling. "You sound like you again." "I know. How long has it been?" 7 months. "Maybe longer." She pressed her lips together and looked at the facility entrance. "I'm going in there and I'm getting Daniel." "Carol, wait!" I held her hands tighter. "Before you do that, I need you to hear something." I reached into my robe pocket and held up the pink pill. She stared at it. "This was supposed to be for my memory," I said. "But I didn't take it today, and my memory came back in 3 hours." Her face went from grief to understanding to something cold and still that I'd never seen on my daughter's face before. "I want to get this tested," I said. She took the pill gently and wrapped it in a tissue from her purse. Then she looked at me. "More than anyone alive." "Then here's what we're going to do." Carol had spent 12 years working in healthcare administration before she became a medical billing consultant. She knew the system, she knew the language, and she knew exactly who to call. Within 90 minutes, we were sitting in the office of Dr. Priya Mehta, a neurologist Carol had trained under in a different life. Dr. Mehta's practice was on the east side of Naperville, a quiet office with ferns in the corners and diplomas that filled an entire wall. She was 53, small and precise, with reading glasses she kept lifting onto her forehead. She looked at the pill for a long moment. Then she looked at me. "Tell me everything," she said. I did. All of it. The fog, the schedule, the unsigned forms, the appointment with Dr. Harmon in Oak Brook I couldn't remember making. Dr. Mehta pulled up a database on her desktop screen. She typed in the name. She searched. She turned the screen toward us. "There is no Dr. Harmon with a neurology or geriatric specialty in the Oak Brook area," she said, "not licensed in Cook County. Not in the last 10 years. Carol's hand found mine under the armrest. Dr. Mehta sent the pill to her lab and drew a blood sample from me. She said results would take 24 to 48 hours. In the meantime, she looked at me over the top of her reading glasses and said, "Margaret, I want you to understand what I'm about to tell you. Based on what you're describing the timeline, the rate of clearance after one missed dose, the symptom profile, this is not consistent with Alzheimer's disease. This is consistent with chemical sedation." The room was very quiet. "Someone has been making you confused on purpose," she said plainly. "That is a crime. I had known it. Somewhere, underneath everything. Since the car. But hearing a doctor say it out loud made it real in a way that settled into my chest like a stone." Carol was already on her phone. She'd put off calling Daniel for 2 hours, and now his texts were stacking up. "Mom, where did you go? Vanessa is worried. Please call me." Then, after a pause, "Why is Carol here? We need to talk." "Don't respond," Dr. Mehta said. "Not yet." We drove to Carol's house in Evanston that evening. On the way, I finally looked at my bank accounts for the first time in months. Carol helped me log in on my phone. The checking account held $4,200. It had held $67,000 in July. We sat in Carol's kitchen for a long time after I saw that number. The kettle boiled, and neither of us moved to pour it. "I'm going to need a lawyer," I said finally. Carol was already texting. Her name was Susan Park. She was 58, Korean American, with a sharply organized mind and an office on Michigan Avenue that made it very clear she did not lose cases she cared about. She specialized in elder law and financial exploitation, and when Carol told her what we had, she drove to Evanston that same night. She sat across from me at Carol's dining table and asked me one question first. "Margaret, before we start, are you clear right now? Are you thinking straight?" "I am," I said. "I haven't taken anything since yesterday morning." "Good." She opened her laptop. "Then, let's build a case." I walked her through 7 months. Every detail I could now access, things that had been locked away in the fog and were surfacing hour by hour. The November forms, I described them as best I could. Something about account management and durable power of attorney. The financial advisor named Gareth who came to my house in December. The way Vanessa had started answering my phone for me. The week in January when Daniel changed the password on my home security system and told me he'd update me with the new one when he had a chance. He never did. Susan wrote everything down without expression. When I finished, she looked up. "Is there anyone else in your life, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague who noticed something was wrong and said something to you?" I thought about it. There was Dorothy, my next-door neighbor for 22 years, Dorothy Haynes, a former social worker. She'd rung my doorbell in October, and I'd come to the door in my robe at 2 in the afternoon. She'd asked if I was all right. I'd told her I was tired. She'd looked at me for a long moment and said, "Margaret, if you ever need me, my door is never locked. I want you to remember that." I hadn't understood it then. I called her. She answered before the second ring. "Margaret," she said, and her voice cracked. "I've been waiting for this call. I've been waiting for 3 months." She came right over. She brought a manila envelope. "I've been documenting," Dorothy said, sitting at Carol's kitchen table. "Dates, times, what I observed." She slid photographs from the envelope. Gareth's car in my driveway twice in December. Daniel's car, license plate clearly visible, at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night in January. A woman she didn't recognize going in and out of my side door with a key. Susan leaned forward, and I described the woman. "Vanessa's sister," I said. Susan held the photos up one at a time. "This is systematic," she said quietly. "This is not opportunistic. This was planned." The lab results came back the following afternoon. Dr. Mehta called Carol's phone. She said 2 substances had been identified in the pill, diazepam and a low-dose sedative called esopiclone, both well above standard therapeutic doses. Neither was an appropriate treatment for Alzheimer's disease or any form of memory disorder. Combined and taken daily over months, the cumulative effect on a woman my age and size would be significant. Disorienting cognitive function, deepening sleep cycles, and impairing both short and long-term memory retention. "In plain language," she said, "these pills were designed to keep you confused, not to help you." My blood work confirmed residual levels of both compounds. 7 months of accumulation. Susan filed for an emergency protective order that afternoon. She also contacted the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation and flagged the withdrawals from my checking account. A financial investigator named Marcus Webb was assigned to the case within 24 hours. He called Susan on day 2 with news that made everything land differently. "Your son is in serious debt," he said over speakerphone. "We're looking at failed restaurant venture, $340,000 in losses over 18 months. 2 credit cards maxed, a personal loan default. His home equity line has been drawn to the limit. He needed money fast, and he needed it in a way that didn't look like theft." "What did he do?" Carol asked. "In November, he transferred $63,000 from your mother's checking account to an account in his name. He obtained access through a joint account agreement your mother signed or appears to have signed on November 14th. "I didn't remember signing anything on November 14th. I said so. Given her documented medication levels on that date, Susan said any signature obtained would likely be challengeable as signed under cognitive impairment. That's coercion. That may be fraud, Marcus continued. There's more. Your daughter-in-law, Vanessa, submitted paperwork to your mother's insurance company in January, requesting a policy change naming Daniel as secondary beneficiary and increasing the payout. The paperwork was signed by Margaret. Same challenge applies. How much? Life insurance policy, $280,000. Carol stood up and walked to the window. She stood with her back to us for a long moment. I thought about Daniel at 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework while I graded papers beside him. The way he'd bring me coffee without being asked. The look on his face at Robert's funeral, the grief had been real. I knew it had been real, but grief can break things in people that were already cracked. And I hadn't known how cracked Daniel already was before Robert died. That doesn't make what he did forgivable. I just needed to understand how it had happened. Susan filed 3 more motions. We froze the accounts Daniel had access to. Marcus sent the insurance company a legal hold notice. And we waited. Daniel called 12 times in 3 days. Vanessa sent texts that started warm and became desperate. Daniel's final message was a voicemail left at 11:30 on a Thursday night. Mom, I know something is wrong. I know Carol is involved. Please just talk to me before you do something that can't be undone. I'm your son. I love you. We were only trying to help. I listened to it twice. Then I put the phone face down on Carol's coffee table. Dorothy was sitting across from me. She'd been coming over every morning. He believes it, I said. Part of him actually believes he was helping. Dorothy looked at me carefully. Or he needs you to believe he believes it. I didn't sleep that night. The decision to confront Daniel directly was Susan's idea, and it was not an easy one to agree to. She explained it clearly. We had the financial records. We had the lab results. We had Dr. Mehta's testimony. We had Dorothy's documentation and Marcus's report. What we didn't have was Daniel or Vanessa acknowledging, out loud, what they had done. Without that, their defense would be that they were acting in good faith, a concerned son, managing the affairs of a mother they genuinely believed was deteriorating. Susan had seen it before. Juries had bought it before. She looked at me across Carol's kitchen table. Margaret, I'm not going to tell you this isn't uncomfortable, but if you can get Daniel in a room and get him talking, we have something much stronger than paperwork. What do I say to him? You say you're confused. You say you're sorry for disappearing. You say you want to come home. Let him fill in the rest. I called Daniel from Dorothy's phone. He answered on the first ring. Mom, is that you? Whose number is this? I made my voice soft, uncertain. Danny, I'm at Dorothy's. I got confused. I can't remember the last few days very well. A pause. Then, warm and careful, Mom, it's okay. It's okay. Are you all right? Are you safe? I think so. I'm so confused, Daniel. I don't know what Carol was telling me. She had me scared. But I don't want to be away from home. I could hear the relief in his voice, and underneath it, something else. The sound of a plan clicking back into place. You come home, he said gently. We'll get this sorted out. You probably just missed a few doses. Once your medication is regulated again, everything will feel clearer. I want to see you, I said. Can you come to Dorothy's? Of course. I'll be there in an hour. He came alone. Vanessa had stayed back, he said, because she didn't want to overwhelm me. He sat down on Dorothy's couch and took my hands and looked at me with his father's eyes and told me how worried he'd been. The small camera Dorothy had agreed to allow in her living room, positioned in the bookshelf behind a framed photo of her late husband, recorded everything. I asked him about the pills. I asked him gently, like someone still not quite sure of her own memory. Danny? Those pills, doctor. Harmon prescribed what exactly are they for? He explained them smoothly. Memory support. Standard protocol for early-stage Alzheimer's. But I looked him up, I said carefully. A flicker. Very brief. You probably looked in the wrong place, Mom. He's not a typical practice. He works with referrals. And the bank account. I paused. The balance seems low to me. He took a small breath. I've been managing some expenses for the house. For your care. It adds up. We've been carrying a lot, Mom. There it was. He kept talking. He had more to say about how I wasn't capable of managing things on my own, about how Vanessa had done research on the best facilities, and this was a kindness, not a removal, about how Carol had never been reliable and was filling my head with paranoia, about how the power of attorney was just a precaution, how I'd agreed to it, how I'd been very clear about wanting his help. I remember signing something, I said softly, but I don't remember what it said. He squeezed my hands. That's the Alzheimer's, Mom. That's exactly why we have to do this. The front door opened. Susan walked in, with Carol behind her. Daniel stood. He looked at Susan. He looked at Carol. He looked at Dorothy, standing in the hallway doorway. Then he looked at me. I held his gaze. I'm not confused, Daniel. I didn't take the pill this morning, and I haven't taken it in 4 days. My mind is clear. His face changed. The warmth drained out of it so completely it was almost terrifying, not because he became cruel, but because there was simply nothing there. Nothing underneath the warmth. Just calculation, running very fast. Susan spoke. Daniel, everything said in this room in the last 15 minutes has been recorded. I represent your mother. I'd strongly suggest you call an attorney. He didn't say anything for a long time. He looked at me once more with an expression I couldn't read, and then he walked out the door. Marcus had found something else by the end of that week. 2 years before Robert died, Vanessa had pressured Daniel to take out a life insurance policy on me. The original beneficiary had been both Robert and Daniel equally. In January, it had been quietly updated to Vanessa alone. $280,000. Payable on my death. Susan was very still when she told me. She planned ahead, I said. She planned for multiple outcomes, Susan said. She planned for you to survive the facility, and she planned for the possibility that you wouldn't. I think about Robert then. I think about what he must have seen in Vanessa in those last years. What he might have felt in the back of his mind that he couldn't put words to. He hadn't liked her. Not really. He'd been kind, because that was Robert. But he'd never fully relaxed around her. I'd dismissed it as personality difference. I'd told myself he was protective of Daniel, in an old-fashioned way. He'd been afraid for me. That was what the dream had been. That was what he'd been trying to tell me. Vanessa was arrested on a Friday in late March. Daniel turned himself in 2 days later, after a phone conversation with his own attorney, who apparently reviewed the evidence and told him cooperation was his only viable path. He confessed to the financial transfers, to obtaining the joint account agreement under false pretenses, and to his knowledge of the medication protocol Vanessa had established. He said he had not known about the life insurance policy change. I believe him. I believe that one thing. The charges against Vanessa were significant. Financial exploitation of an elderly adult, obtaining signatures through fraudulent misrepresentation, procurement of prescription medication without valid authorization, and elder abuse. The DA was reviewing whether to add charges related to the insurance policy. Her attorney released a statement claiming she had acted in good faith. The recorded conversation in Dorothy's living room made that claim extremely difficult to sustain. Daniel's plea agreement was filed 4 weeks later. He pled guilty to financial exploitation and fraud. The sentencing guidelines were 18 to 36 months, with eligibility for early release contingent on full cooperation and restitution. He would repay every dollar taken from my accounts. It would take years, likely the rest of his working life. but it would be paid. I stood in the courthouse lobby after the hearing. Carol was beside me. Dorothy had driven in from Naperville and stood on my other side, which made me feel steadier than I'd expected. A reporter tried to ask me something. Carol stepped forward and said, "No comment, thank you," and put her arm around my shoulders and moved us toward the exit. Outside, the April air was sharp and bright. The trees along Clark Street were starting to bud. I stood on the sidewalk and tilted my face up toward the light for a moment. "How do you feel?" Carol asked. I thought about it honestly. "Like myself," I said, for the first time in a very long time. The following October, I spoke at a community forum on elder financial abuse hosted by the Naperville Public Library. The room held about 150 people, social workers, caregivers, attorneys, and a great many people my age and older who sat very quietly and listened very carefully to what I said. I told them what had been done to me. I told them about the fog that felt like disease but was manufactured. I told them about the forms I'd signed and the money I'd lost and the facility they'd planned to put me in. I told them about the dream and the glasses and the single pink pill I'd hidden in my robe pocket one February morning for reasons I still can't fully explain, except that somewhere in my mind Robert was still watching out for me. I told them what I had learned. If your medications suddenly come from a family member instead of your own pharmacy, ask questions. Not later. Now. If you find yourself too tired to stay awake through a conversation, too foggy to follow a bank statement, too confused to remember an appointment you apparently kept, trust the part of you that says, "This is not right." That part is usually telling the truth. If someone who loves you begins managing your life in ways that feel like help, but leave you with less information, less independence, less access to the people who knew you before they arrived, that is not love. Love does not require your confusion to function. And if you see an older person in your life who seems to be disappearing, not declining, but disappearing, as if someone is slowly turning down their volume, say something. Say it directly and say it soon. You may be the only person in their life who can still hear them. Dorothy was in the front row. Same as she had been for everything. After the event, she walked with me to my car in the parking lot. The air smelled like fallen leaves, that particular Illinois October smell I'd known my whole life. "I'm going home tomorrow," I told her. "Back to the house." "Good," she said. "It still feels strange. Being there without Robert. Being there after everything." She linked her arm through mine. "You'll make it yours again. Give it time." I don't know about Daniel. I don't know what that becomes, what we are to each other on the other side of what he did. He sent a letter. 1 page, handwritten, no excuses, just the word sorry repeated in different formations, as if he were trying to find the arrangement that would hold the most weight. I read it several times and then I put it in the drawer of my nightstand and left it there. I am not ready. I may not ever be entirely ready. Both of those things can be true. Carol and I have dinner every Thursday now. We always have the same argument about whether to go Italian or Thai, and we always end up at the same Italian place 2 blocks from her apartment, and by the time we've finished the bread, I've stopped remembering why I ever thought Thai was a better option. My mind is clear. My accounts are being restored, slowly. My garden is dormant for the winter, but I've already ordered seeds for spring tomatoes and sweet peas and the yellow zinnias Robert liked best. I'm thinking about substituting at the elementary school in the spring. Nothing full-time, just enough to remember that I'm useful in ways that have nothing to do with what I own. Last Sunday, I found Robert's reading chair in the sunroom and sat in it for the first time since he died. I don't know why I'd been avoiding it. Maybe I was afraid of how it would feel. But I sat down, and I looked out at the dormant garden, and I felt him there. Not as a presence exactly, but as a weight, steady and kind. I talked to him for a little while. I told him what had happened. I told him Carol had been extraordinary. I told him Dorothy had saved me without knowing she was saving me. I told him I was still here, still sharp, still myself, mostly. Then I told him I was going to be okay. And I meant it all the way down. If this story moved you, drop a 2 in the comments below. And if you have someone in your life who might need to hear it, a mother, a grandmother, a neighbor, someone whose light seems a little dimmer than it used to, please share it. You genuinely never know whose life you might change. This is Stories of Chloe. Thank you for watching. Stay close to the people who knew you before, and never stop trusting the part of yourself that says something isn't right. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.